Norwegian Agency for Development Cooperation, NORAD, in Norway. I have been with the task force off and on since 2008 when it was established. And it's just such a joy for me to come back and to be at these meetings and to see how it's grown and to be part of the steering committee and to talk with a lot of you guys about what you're doing, how you're working on teacher issues. This first now, interpretation. There's interpretation over there. Everyone here will be speaking in English, I believe, right? You'll all be speaking in English, so anybody needing interpretation, over there. I was also told that some of us, including me, might have taken the interpretation equipment and put it in my bag for lunch. They have to pay for each piece of interpretation equipment that we take with us in the bag, you know, and disappear with at the end. And also they need to be charged. So if I could ask all of you to look in your bags, if you happen to have interpretation equipment, and take it out of your bag, never to put it back in your bag. Okay? I want to see some thumbs up. Are we okay? We're okay. Okay. And then I've made another agreement with these folks here. It was a suggestion from one of the participants. Because we're going to have a little bit of a dialogue, try to make it interactive. We're going to try to delve into some of the issues a little bit deeper that we've already talked about, from the high-level panel on the teaching profession and from the Global Teacher Report. And they're going to talk no more than 4 minutes on my first question because I want to be able to do follow-up questions. So when they've spoken 4 minutes, I'm going to start doing this. And then you all join. If you've never been to UNESCO, at UNESCO they have this time and the clock goes down and then the music comes down and it gets louder and louder. So if we all start doing this, that's the sign. It's been 4 minutes. You know it's time to let somebody else talk. Okay. We all got it. Thank you very much. I think we all have sort of the rules of the panel discussion. All right. So then I'm going to introduce this esteemed panel, and then I need to make sure that I get the right notes so that I don't mess it up. First, we have Mr. Iwan Cyril. He is the Director General for Early Childhood Education, Basic Education, and Secondary Education. And I think you might have on the role too. But I think that that's enough for now. In the Ministry of Education, Culture, Research, and Technology in Indonesia. Welcome. And then we have Mr. Joe Kamoko. Joe is the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Education in Zambia. Welcome. Then we have Mrs. Dr. Denise Stoney-Jones. She's the Deputy Program Manager for Education in CARICOM, which is the Caribbean Community, Secretariat for the Caribbean Community, in case not everybody is familiar with the abbreviation. Then we have Dr. Khalifa Al-Suwaidi. He's the Secretary General of the Board of Trustees with Hamdan, and how we've got to do the whole thing right, Hamdan bin Rashid Al Maktoum Foundation for Medical and Educational Sciences in the United Arab Emirates. And you hosted also the PDF 4 years ago in Dubai. Thank you. And then, last but not least, we have Mahmoud Houre, who is an education officer with the UNHCR. Welcome to all of you. I'm not going to repeat any of all the questions and all the issues from this morning. I want to let this panel speak as much as possible about their experiences. So I've prepared some questions that I would like to ask them to comment on for about then 4 minutes. And we're going to start with Mr. Cyril. You know, the numbers that we have by 2030, only 4 in 10 countries will have enough teachers in order to reach the primary and secondary universal coverage. In my country, Norway, we are only 5 million people. It's a tiny little country. We have less than 3,000 schools. In Indonesia, you have more than 300,000 schools. You have a decentralized system. You have millions of teachers. And you have 500 plus local authorities that are then supposed to take the directives from the government, from the sort of central government, and implement that in a decentralized manner into all these 300,000 plus schools. So what I would really like to hear from you is, how are you planning on going about your goal? The sheer number is daunting, of recruiting 1 million teachers. I think that we're all excited to hear about these plans for Indonesia.
And I have 4 minutes to answer that.
1 million teachers
I will
in 4
play along
minutes.
with that. Okay, thank you so much, Gerd-Hanne, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues. So I'll divide my response to that in 2 parts. The first part is to give you the background context. Yes, Indonesia has a very large system. We have 3.3 million teachers, 300,000 schools, and then 50 million students, and also 552 autonomous local authorities, which is make it even more complex. 3 years ago, we decided to make a big policy, which is to recruit 1 million teachers, because we identify we have a teacher shortage of 1 million teachers, filled by contract teachers mainly, and also in remote areas, no teachers at all. And up to this now, we have succeeded 840,000 teachers recruit, so in 3 years. But that's not easy, that's not easy. So let me tell you why. The first part is why it became a problem. First, at the end of 1990s, we transformed from super centralized government to super decentralized government. So before, when there is a teacher, like teachers retire, national selection, national deployment. But now, with the decentralized government, teachers retire, local government needs to do some kind of management, counting, propose to the national government, we do national selection, and then local government will do the recruitment, proper recruitment and deployment. But a lot of complication there, because local government did not identify the retired teachers to replace them, and local government also did not approve all the results of the selection, because they wanted more money, more budget, for, despite they have been given the budget. This is budget politics between centralized and decentralized government, it's another topic. But also, they want the local people to be the teachers. So previously, national deployment was made possible. If we transfer people from one province to another province, this is make it more difficult now. So because of that, it's complication of like how to recruit teachers, and as a result, we have a shortage of 1 million teachers filled by contract teachers. And then I want to say that the attraction is not a problem as much as how it is in other countries, and I tell you why. So the contract teachers fill in these vacancies because of the long bureaucratic process of teacher recruitment because of decentralized government. But then they stay in becoming a teachers despite low pay, of course, in terms of quality, no standards. Schools just recruit based on who they know around them. It doesn't have to have the necessary qualification. But then they have low salary. And there's a question, why do they stay? Not only for a few years, but can be also 1 decade, 2 decades. 2 reasons. First, there is this sense of calling. There is also this socio-cultural philosophy to be accepting with life. You don't have to be super ambitious in life. That is our one of our social-cultural context, but also the spiritual dimension. Because if you become teacher, it is believed that it's not only you get money here in the world, but in the afterworld, you'll get the eternal reward, then you can go to heaven. This is a very noble and double impact, and they feel like this is okay, we do the service, and this is not for life, but also afterlife. So, but then here's another question. How can they survive with their family? They have 2 children, 3 children, 4 children. How do they survive? The answer is side jobs. So they manage to get some time around to do side jobs. Okay, now what's lessons learned? Lessons learned is number 1. When we decided to do 1 million recruitment, it really needed a strong political commitment. This is really like sensitive issue because, oh, I forgot to answer the second factor. Why did they stay despite poor working condition? It's the easiest way to be civil servant, equal job security. So it's very, very politicized, and they will, many of them become successfully in the past, hundreds of thousands. So we do it in a way that have to be aligned with the purpose about quality, minimum quality standard, and also, of course, the good working conditions because they become the government employees. And the second part is that this is like super, super hard. We spend billions of rupiah just for coordination. You mentioned 552. If I visit each of these local government to have a dialogue, 2 years is not enough because 1 year you only have 250 working days. So in 2 years, still 500, I need a third year. So the next lessons learned is that it was an opportunity to learn suddenly because of this attraction, they want to become civil servant. So we create an assessment that is good enough, but then we create a platform for them to learn and do practice tests. As a result, suddenly massive teacher learning communities to upgrade in terms of especially the content knowledge of the subjects that they're learning. So that was a very good thing to have. And the last thing that I want to mention is the way forward. What we learn from this is, going forward, this is what we're doing now. We're preparing this in the pipeline, integration of teacher pre-service education with the national recruitment. So universities cannot just produce teacher candidates just for like diploma meals. They have to really plan, and we have to plan together. And each cluster of local government should have like a self-sufficient system in terms of how do they get their teachers when their teachers retire for all subject areas and for all levels. And the last part is what we think and what we're kind of want to do now is to give more autonomy directly to schools, so schools can recruit more independently, but we provide with a platform, a marketplace platform. So those teachers who are already qualified, if they have the diploma for teaching, then they can go to this marketplace platform. And when they recruit these teachers, the schools will be tracked. They have to recruit based on the proper working conditions. So that's what we're going to do going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, very ambitious. And I guess there are quite a few countries that would like to have this sort of afterlife perspective also on the teaching profession. It would be helpful for recruiting. That's very interesting to hear, but also a very honest analysis of issues that you're having, so thank you very much. Mr. Komoko, we've heard from Indonesia how they're working to recruit 1 million teachers. In Zambia, you've recruited more than 30,000 teachers because you've also dealt with the same issue of a shortage of teachers. And you're also in the process of developing a new holistic teacher policy. And so I would really love to hear from you, sort of both how you've recruited and how you've gone about your recruiting of 30,000, but also how does that new teacher policy, how does the new sort of holistic teacher policy fit into that? What's the purpose and how's that going to help?
Okay, good afternoon. Good after lunch. Salut Bonan. Bonjour. Good afternoon one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, as already indicated by the moderator, I'm Joel Kamoko. I'm PS Educational Services in Zambia. My responsibility is to look after the education aspect, and I look after the 3 units, and my colleague in administration looks after the 13 that make administration. Just to indicate that the excitement for us is that as I come to you today, I bring greetings from Zambia. I don't want to start by answering without doing that. But I also want to recognize, as my minister from Ghana spoke, that he was reminding me that we should always have a reason why we wake up and decide to recruit. We're dealing with the issue of shortages. What created them? In Zambia, we got excited and decided ECE, primary, secondary, you're going to pay nothing, come back to school. And we did notice, surprising enough, that out of the 4.2 were in school, suddenly we had 6 point something. So the question is, where did the 2 point something million children come from? It meant that the policies we had in place, people could not afford, and therefore they stayed in the streets. And maybe the question you ask is, 40 years from today, those street adults would be what to society? They would be your criminals to be, the junkies, name it, that you are scared of. So arising from the social responsibility to educate, as you have already said, we decided we need the teachers in the space. So I think the first recruitment was the most challenging in the sense that we had to recruit 30,496 that we had not done before. But what made it easier? We made sure that the national headquarters, working through Teaching Service Commission, established district committees for human resource, which recruited in the districts, implying that our role as national center was just to validate. And who would play the other role? You'd also have the provincial centers. Now, in these committees, you'd have officers from Office of the President, you'd have officers from Cabinet Office, officers from the teacher unions, because you said the stakeholders must have a say. So we were all checking on each other. And obviously, when we were done, we created a data set. Whoever was applying, applied through our postal services. So we had one set of data, and when it was time to select, you had to have applied through that data set. Now, when it's done and you are recruited, you then are checked further by what we call the Teaching Council of Zambia. You heard my minister, Ghana, talking about how proud they are that they accredit teachers as professionals. Then we also have the Examination Council of Zambia. We want to be sure that these O levels, for us we are still at O level, though now we are following Ghana and others into A level. We make sure that your qualifications are genuinely yours. Because we do know that with the coming of online education, there are fake results that fly all over. So that done, we were able then to validate and produce a master list, which was printed out throughout the country. And these people then had to report to the provinces, which took them to their respective districts. Ultimately, they reported to the schools. Now, talking about these processes in itself, this led us to the next subsequent year. We did recruit 7,221, which is 22, 23. And now, just recently, we'll be recruiting another 4,200. Now, what's informing us is that the gap for teachers, if we are to have no more teacher-pupil ratio, Zambia lacks 85,000 teachers. Yes, we have them in the street, but we have a struggling economy, so we will not commit suicide, lest we fail to run that budget. So speaking to us, what has been informing what we do, unlike their big decentralization, for us we have 10 regions, we have 116 constituencies or districts, so much easier for us to run, and whatever you do moves from central to decentralization. And now we do have new initiatives like what we famous CDF, where if I'm going into a secondary school, please, shortly, I'm winding up. I'm going to a secondary school, I get a bursary. I don't have to be stuck because my parents can't afford. I'm going into a university, I have the necessary meal allowance. It had been scrapped and a lot of students were struggling to finish school. So what's our secret? We have a president who is willing. We have a nation that is willing. And we think like learning from Ghana. We're a country on the move. So we will not look back to our challenges. We'll look forward to opportunities.
Thank you very much. It's very encouraging to hear from countries that have the political commitment and that are really moving forward. I want to move now to the Caribbean. And we heard earlier the talk about teacher. I mean, you also obviously need to recruit teachers, but we also heard more about teachers leaving the Caribbean. And I was wondering, is that common? Is that something common for all of the Caribbean? Or are there different other issues as well? Is it sort of, we sort of lump Caribbean together, but I'd really like you to touch on that and share with us what you're doing as a CARICOM Secretariat around these issues.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to participate in this session and share the CARICOM experience with teacher shortages. I will share some strategies that have been proven to be effective in addressing these challenges. One of the key challenges in the education sector in the region is the annual loss of teachers every August. This causes significant disruptions in schools. To address these issues, it is crucial to effectively manage teacher migration while focusing on teacher recruitment and retention. The migration of teachers has resulted in the depletion of the teaching force in some member states. As a result, short-term measures to address shortages in specializations such as STEM, TVET, and special needs have required some member states to resort to using international cooperation with countries such as Cuba, the Dominican Republic, to import professionals. By implementing such measures, the region can ensure that the system runs smoothly and students receive quality education they deserve. Various policies have been implemented to address this problem of this teacher shortage problem. I'll share some of these. These include the rehiring of retirees on restricted terms and conditions of service, engaging teachers on approved vacation leave, hiring part-time teachers, offering scholarships to pre-service teachers in these areas, STEM, TVET, engaging pre-trained graduate teachers. Pre-trained graduate teachers are teachers who have gone through university, but they have not been trained as teachers. Looking at increasing the bottom-up support at the school level, looking at teacher agency, looking at mentoring. How is it that the average teacher can contribute to their effectiveness within the profession? Redeploying and training underutilized staff. Using a blocked timetable approach. Now, a blocked timetable approach means that students within a particular age range will have a particular subject at the same time. So a class that would be of 20 students or 100 students divided into 5, so 20 in each class, would now be placed in one setting to ensure that one trained teacher can deal with those students. So having larger classes result from this teacher shortage issue. The voluntary relocation of teachers from overstaffed school to understaffed school. And also establishing partnership between and among schools so they benefit from each other, looking at a community of practice approach. And using money provided by the ministry, for example, to conduct research to help the teacher educators to develop their competencies in order to train students, to pre-service students to go into the profession. Now, these policies ensure that schools have qualified teachers to provide quality education to students. At least one member state has a teacher retention bonus, which is a one-time payment that must be repaid if the teacher resigns. The issue of migration is only a going concern in some member states. We find that the entry requirements for teachers differ across member states. So it may start as a 2-year associate degree to as much as a 4-year degree in education. So there is a disconnect between what the recruiters are looking for and what some teachers have. So in some member states, migration is not an issue. However, those member states have issues with having competent teachers in the required subject areas. But we experience intra-regional migration. So for example, Jamaican teachers will move to the UK and the US, but they may also move to the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos Islands because they have a need there and Jamaica can supply that need. We need to remember, though, that these factors and these policies are implemented at the local level. So they're implemented within schools, within districts, and at the country level. And because they're contextual, they're implemented differently in order to address the particular need at the time.
Thank you very much. Interesting to hear also that perspective and the differences within the different islands. It's not all the same. It looks different across, but you also have strategies that you are trying to apply to make things more equal across the different countries. I'm wondering if we could do UNHCR first, just to sort of get that perspective, and then I'll do the foundation perspective. But I wanted to turn to you, Mahmoud. Displacement and crises worsen pre-existing situations and shortages, and it also impact teacher well-being and training and recruitment and all the issues that we've heard about. And one of the objectives in UNHCR's policy or strategy is to promote the inclusion in national education systems of refugee students. And you therefore work with a wide range of partners to ensure that national policies do that. Could you elaborate on the specific obstacles that teachers encounter in these contexts, and particularly those who are refugees or otherwise displaced as well?
Thank you very much. And I want to start with a quote from a teacher, from a refugee teacher from Malawi. And he says, "You can teach without a classroom, but you can't teach without a teacher." Those are the areas we mostly forget. We focus on our students in a class, but we forget the teachers most of the time. And I think this is true. Having worked in refugee camps, in different schools, and now with UNHCR, I know too well the role refugee teachers or displaced teachers play. Sometimes they are the only resource students have. And you know, when you get displaced, you have to, when you've lost everything, it means you have to abandon your school, your studies, and you cross a border. The only thing that, you know, gives hope to a lot of the young people is the possibility and the potential to have education. But what is the situation of the teachers? Unfortunately, it's challenging, and there are a number of obstacles that are particular to displaced teachers, but there are many that they also share with the broader profession, as we have heard today. And one of the things is around recognition of prior qualifications. So you cross a border, and the qualifications you have worked so hard to acquire, the profession you have been very proud of, that is not recognized. So which means you're just rendered invisible. And what does that mean? It means you will not be able to participate, you know, as a teacher or practice as a teacher. And this works in you know, two ways: the lack of recognition in countries that host refugees, but even those that acquire qualifications in the countries of asylum and go back also struggle to receive that recognition in their own countries. So recognition of prior qualifications is one big challenge, and the others is around compensation. I was visiting a refugee camp in East Africa. I will not mention the country. And I went to a school, met with teachers, and one of the teachers told me their monthly incentive, it's not a salary, it's an incentive, is between $15 to $17, and it has not been paid for 3 months. And so you can imagine how in that context, and this, you know, is common across, you can be able to attract or recruit a teacher to a school, or even retain them. So that's the sort of issues that they grapple with. And that teacher, you know, one thing that stuck with me, he said, the shoes he was wearing costs more than the monthly incentive he gets as a teacher. So obviously, he's not doing it for the incentive. He's doing it just because of the community, of the children, and that, yeah. So we need to really recognize the issues around low compensation, but sometimes it's not predictable, There are issues around unstable contracts. A lot of the refugee situations, and particularly schools, are outside national systems. And so they are entirely, most of the time, reliant on humanitarian funding, which, as we know, fluctuates. And then the other issue is around professional development opportunities. So this is limited, and when it's available, it's often episodic. And so you might be provided training for a few days, maybe weeks. And sometimes this training is not accompanied with coaching, with mentorship, and the tools and the support that you need to navigate a very complex classroom and teaching environment. And in a lot of the camps, class sizes are very large. So we're talking of classrooms with 100, with 200 children, with a teacher who is not trained, children who have residual trauma, from the displacement that they have had and the conflicts they have. And so you're working in one of the most difficult classroom environments, but you don't have the support that you need. And this is, I think, in a large part, something that contributes to the teacher shortage that we see. And then, of course, you have to navigate issues around language, coming to a different country, culture, curriculum, and that, yeah. So I will just stop here, but those are some of the issues that these teachers navigate. But I also want to point out that, they are the heroes, for their communities and for the people who work in those spaces. The fact that they go to school every day under very difficult circumstances to provide support is a testament to their resilience and the belief that, they can and they have to be there for those children who are affected by conflict. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, context is everything in so many ways. We need to be aware of context. So many issues are the same, but then there are variations and specific issues that we need to look at in those crisis settings. Thank you. Khalifa, I want to turn to you. You and Hamdan, together with UNESCO, you support the teacher prize, the Hamdan Prize for Teacher Development, and that rewards projects and teachers particularly that have contributed to improving the performance and effectiveness of teachers. And you also support lots of other initiatives in education, I know that. But when it comes to this, your experience from the different laureates who've been working with them over the years, how do you see countries, based on that, how can countries better recognize the teaching profession to attract talented candidates and support them in developing and implementing innovations in the classroom? And perhaps also, what role do you think teacher prizes play in that? Because we heard the AU Commissioner today reference awards. We heard, I think it was also Ghana talked about teacher awards. So perhaps you could also touch on that in your about 4 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. At Hamdan Foundation, when we started our business 26 years ago, we thought that we could do something for education locally within the United Arab Emirates and beyond that internationally. We believe that the change of the status of teachers could be up-down, that's from ministries down to the schools, or from bottom-up, means teachers themselves could raise something, they could come with initiatives that if we could recognize such initiatives in a way or another, and the award is one way of recognizing a good initiative from schools. When I say recognizing that, that means we are honoring what we call them agent of change within the schools. And it's magic. It works very well locally and internationally. We ran a study after 20 years of being in business surveying the winners, the laureate of the Hamdan Foundation. And one of the major points being raised by the laureate or the winners was that before being recognized as a winner, they could run a workshop or do something and nobody is listening to them. While being recognized internationally or national level, whenever they are announcing that they are going to run a workshop or they wanted to share their practice, everybody is willing to listen from them, whatever they are saying. So at Hamdan Foundation, we believe that change could become from within the schools itself. And we should not wait for anything that might come or not from the ministerial level. Other initiatives that we are supporting, research internationally. And one of the researches that's been funded lately is the report about the teacher shortages. Cross-cultural research is getting us a lot of lessons between nationals, countries, and different parts of the world. Also, we run some good programs, such as, this is unique actually, within the United Arab Emirates, we have a master degree called Innovation in Education. So a Master of Innovation in Education. Can you imagine what type of a master degree that would be? It's telling teachers and principals to think outside the box and view the school in a different way. We managed to have good number of graduates locally now in the United Arab Emirates out of that program. That's in short what we are doing.
Thank you very much. Very early in my career, I was thinking about this because your teachers sharing or not having a platform to share good practices, I think is quite common, even within the same school. So early in my career, I was working for the coordinator of UNESCO's Associated Schools project. And so you had some schools that were very dedicated to working on international issues. And within that, you had so many teachers who were doing stellar work. But that opportunity for them to share, even within their own school, what they were doing, their best practices and their pedagogy. And they were also very reluctant to share what they were doing, because they were always afraid it wasn't good enough. So I think that the bottom-up approach also, yes, you need the good policies in place, and you need the good policies to also make sure that these teachers that are there can be innovative, can come up with new ideas, and that speaks to what we've also heard about earlier today, the autonomy of teachers. They need that the sense of professionalism and autonomy in order to have that agency and to be the agents of change. I really wanted to follow up a little bit, Joel, with you, because when you are working on recruiting teachers and you're trying to do it also, you're decentralizing a bit as well, but you're also, I think, working then with the teacher organizations and the unions. And we know that sometimes working with unions, we love our unions in Education International. I'm looking right at Dennis. But we know that in some countries, sometimes authorities find it tricky to work with the unions. And it's a little bit of the elephant in the room. So I want to ask Joe, sort of what's the blessing and I don't want to call it a curse. What's the blessing and what's some of the challenges? But this is like very short because this is a 1-hour session. So now I'm going to have to be stricter. Someone will be walking back and forth or something because that snapping didn't quite work. Anyways, okay. Joe.
Thanks. First and foremost, let's all remember that any institution you create in government must be a creature of the law. For Zambia, when you form a union, you're under Cap 269 of the laws of Zambia. And within that, there's procedure and standard behavior anticipated of whoever decides to be a member of the teacher union. I was privileged to work with the teacher unions up to a level of a director, yet at the same time, I was still able to be a lecturer, I was able to be a teacher, and later became an administrator. And for 35 years, I was in education. How was I managed? You engage by law. And then beyond that, there are the mother bodies, like ZCTU, to which every teacher union is answerable. Obviously, the tricky part with good industrial relations is that it's human beings that come to it. And human beings have personal ambitions. And sometimes it's not that the system is sick, but the individual has ambition and he hasn't made it the other side. So when he comes the other side, he obviously wants to bonds with you. But I think that if the managers in governments or private parastatals understand the law, you can't do without your worker. But you must have a formal law that restricts and decides how you relate. Otherwise, for Zambia, I think it's been profitable that the two mother bodies, FFTUZ and Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, supervised by ILO, we've not had a point where we've reached a point where it's breakdown completely. But as I speak to you today, the sad bit is, now that I'm PS, I've seen 14 teacher unions born. In my time, there was only one, now there are 14. And you know when it's bargaining time? It's a headache time. But whatever it is, it has its positives. I submit.
So I think we're in a room where we all agree that nothing for teachers without teachers. So we're going to keep repeating that. And social dialogue is extremely important, but we do understand the issues that you have when you have 14 unions trying to come. And also, you know, the salary issues and then the technical issues, and you want to collaborate with the unions on both. So you want to, of course, they want to negotiate for salary, but also they're so important in contributing to good policy because they know really what it feels like in the classroom. So thank you very much. Denise, I was wondering if I could return to you because I know that in the CARICOM also, you're also working on standards of the teaching profession. So I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit, when you do that across the region, what that looks like and how that's going to contribute to valorizing the profession and to sort of increasing the status of the profession.
Okay. Thank you. A robust education system demands teachers with the necessary skills, competencies, and dispositions aligned to the 21st century. The quality teacher plays a significant role in guiding students and ensuring that effective learning takes place to develop lifelong skills. The CARICOM Secretariat developed regional standards for the teaching profession. These standards included standards for the classroom teacher, the teacher leader, and the teacher educator. And member states are using these standards to align their national standards in their quest to develop the quality of teaching. These standards, when fully implemented, will help to rationalize and harmonize practices in teaching and teacher education across member states with the aim of facilitating the free movement of teachers and other educational personnel under the CARICOM single market and economy. It is widely acknowledged that teaching standards play a crucial role in enhancing the quality of education and the status of the profession. One of the key benefits of having teacher standards is that it promotes a professional development continuum within the profession, which will lead to improved quality of teaching and learning, and good quality teachers are essential to building an efficient workforce that is needed to sustain our development in the region. And also that education is not confined to a particular region in the world today. We're living in a globalized space. And as such, we must benchmark ourselves against international standards. So we're now doing work on developing teaching councils, which will help us in implementing these standards across the region. Some member states are at different points in that development, but we're all committed to the cause of developing teaching councils or equivalent bodies to teaching councils to help us with these education standards.
Thank you very much. Now I'm tempted to ask a follow-up question, which some of you might be thinking too. Well, if all the countries in the region have the same standard and they're already struggling in some countries with recruitment from the UK and the US, are they going to recruit even more students? But we're not going to deal with that. But when you talk with Denise later, you can ask her that question, because you know, there are dilemmas. Everything we do, there is like new questions that open up, and it's like new, not can of worms, but I mean, there are difficult issues coming up. I'd like to go back to Mohammed, because you talked about challenges. And I know that there are also some examples and good practices of how to make it easier for these teachers and how to sort of improve the situation. So perhaps just in 1 or 2 minutes, just a couple of examples would be very useful.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's not, of course, all doom and gloom. There are a lot of work that's been done, both by governments, by also international organizations, donors. And one thing that has been very transformative was the adoption of the Global Compact on Refugees in 2018. And so a lot of countries have committed to include refugees in their national education systems. And we see this taking place in many countries. And what this has facilitated is, the focus has been on the children, but increasingly, we are also seeing many countries looking at the situation of refugee teachers, whether that means working on the recognition. So, for example, there were some policy responses by the IGAD member countries in East Africa, where they had this Djibouti declaration, which specifically called for the inclusion of refugee teachers in national teacher management and development systems, and are working towards a qualification framework. So that's like one positive example. The UNESCO qualification passport is something really important. It's operational in Zambia, so, but it's also been rolled out to other countries in Iraq, in Uganda, in Kenya, and I think this is something that will facilitate the recognition of prior learning, both for the teachers but also for the students, and holds great promise if it's supported and rolled out. We also see countries including refugees in their national teacher training programs. So countries like Chad, in Kenya as well, in the rollout of the training for a new curriculum, community-based curriculum. So we see these very positive examples. We also have, big, donors like the GPE, the Education Cannot Wait, and the World Bank supporting host countries, because the Global Compact on Refugees calls for burden and responsibility sharing. And so to be able to do that, they are increasingly supporting those countries that are hosting refugees, and some of it include support for education and teachers here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm tempted now to go back to you, Khalifa, because Mahmoud talks about the collaboration. He ended up talking about collaboration. And you've been very engaged with the Teacher Task Force for many years. You've supported the production of the global report on teachers. You've also supported the knowledge hub of the Teacher Task Force. What do you envision, or why do you think it's so important with this global collaboration?
Well, schools has something tied with the local society. However, since we are all human beings and we are dealing with a student, internationally there is a lot of cross-cultural things could be served through the international arena, such as UNESCO or task force or other organizations. So why we start from ground zero if there is good initiatives somewhere across the globe that we could start with them, any type of collaboration, and instead of spending money thinking on something new, there is something working very well somewhere here and there. Through the major organizations such as UNESCO and the task force, we could share knowledge, and I'm so happy that the task force has their own platform, the knowledge platform, where anybody, any member of the task force could share their experience, especially the creative one, through that platform, so the world could see that and learn something.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who haven't accessed the Teacher Task Force Knowledge Platform, now is my opportunity to just make one little pitch for that, because there are good examples and there are policy examples that address quite a few of the issues that are also in the Global Teacher Report. So I'll put that out there for those of you who would be interested in accessing that. I want to just do one last question and go back to you, Iwan, because you talked about, I mean, it's so baffling all that you're doing, and the sheer size again, but this working with contract teachers, getting teachers quickly in the profession, but then you said a little bit about how you also work to get them into the mainstream, sort of into the cohort of teachers that are on payroll, that are sort of government teachers. Could you just expand a little bit on how you work on providing those teachers with the training that's needed across Indonesia?
Well, I think at the moment, regardless you are contract teachers, you are government teachers, or you're private school teachers, in Indonesia, I think this is also thanks to COVID, there is this sense of solidarity and also helping each other in terms of professional development. And of course, technology helps, because technology becomes the platform where teachers can learn, share, and collaborate. So it's not only they learn for themselves, but also they share and also collaborate. We did a survey during COVID. At the time, there were 800,000 teachers participating on this platform. It was a very simple platform. What's your motivation to actively participate in the platform? There is no financial incentive. Why are you participating this so active? And one of the top answers was the opportunity to share is a reward by itself. The opportunity to share in itself is a reward by itself. I think teaching is a profession that is very communal, that is very like we are in it together kind of spirit. And this is what is happening in terms of professional development. So perhaps at the moment, I have my former professor here from Michigan State, Professor Amita. I don't know whether you're in this room. Oh, there she is. This is something that I'd like to research after this job later on, is how professional learning community, I think at the moment in our context, is helping the whole country transforming the education ecosystem, either offline or online. This is the spirit of how we move the profession forward. And this is organic, it's not top-down. So we encourage, so that the communities can choose. But when they choose, we provide them with support from the platform, where they can see sample lessons, they can share with each other, and they can also collaborate. I think this is, we don't, during this minister's term, we don't differentiate whether you are contract teachers or non-contract teachers. Every teacher can access to the top priority program if they pass the selection process. So there is some top priority programs that is very selective. We don't look at their status. Contract teachers can also get in, and a lot of them get in and also get developed. So that already started before, and I think going forward, after we recruited 840,000, hopefully we will fulfill 1 million recruits. This spirit, the culture of learning and sharing and collaborating will continue to move forward. Thank you.
Very good. Super. Very interesting to hear all of our panelists. And I know that it's been now a long morning. I'm not going to try to summarize. We hear how so many of the issues from the global report and from the panel are being touched on, and there are similar challenges, different contexts, the solutions therefore will differ, and the ways that we work are different, also depending on where you sit. So I want to give us all give a big hand to the panel. And then there's been some talk about top-down and bottom-up, and perhaps some of us would think that we've had a bit sort of from up here and down there today, so that could be sort